It's your girl Kim.
And your girl CJ.
And we are back for another episode of Too Dope to Be Broke. Oh my God, I said that way fast.
I was trying to hurt the kitchen. I was like, I thought
now y'all know that I'm already a fast and loud talker, and you know that CJ is not. And
just
so
super mellow.
we tried that, and that just did not work today. But anyway, we are back for another episode, and we're so excited because we have a very special guest with us, and his name is Juan Young. And I'm gonna let him introduce himself, but before that, we always like to give a little background.
Yes.
So Juan and CJ just met each other today. Juan, CJ, Juan.
Hola.
What up?
But I have had the privilege of knowing Juan for a pretty long time. We were in college together, and I've always known Juan as a person to be about his business, be about building legacy, building community, building businesses, which is exactly why we have him here today. So we're going to jump right into it. So Juan, would you do us the favor of introducing yourself to our audience?
Cool. So I am Juan Young. I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur. From Los Angeles, was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles.
Okay.
To two amazing parents, Emma and Juan Young Sr. I'm junior, and I'm Black, but my name is Juan. So it's always, I tend to leave a mark everywhere I go because people are like, what? When I say serial entrepreneur, I think ever since I can remember, entrepreneurship has been something that kind of my parents, I saw. My dad is, I think I get a lot of my fearlessness from him. He did, growing up, man, my dad did everything. He was a clown at birthday parties. He was a barber. He was what did he do? He was a boxer. He did stand-up comedy. He was a manager of, he did everything, right? Like he was a baseball coach, a basketball coach, football coach. So he never was afraid to do anything. So I think I get a lot of my fearlessness from him. Then my mom was an entrepreneur. She ran and operated a business for 30 years, a daycare. So growing up, being able to kind of see like the ebbs and flows of kind of entrepreneurship is something I was extremely passionate about. So I remember, being at Cal State San Bernardino as a freshman, and, I would go down to downtown LA. I had a seller's permit. I would be buying 7 jeans. I would be buying True Religion jeans and all of that, right? Lived on campus, and I got a table, and I was selling jeans on campus, man. The girls would come, and they would, outside the student union, they would go take some jeans, go inside the student union, try them on. And I was making money selling jeans. Like, I was known as that guy who was selling clothes on campus. Like, I've just always had this, I've always been able to see opportunity where other people, I think for me, one of the things that has drawn me to entrepreneurship, when I call myself a serial entrepreneur, because my brain operates in a way where I think I can see opportunity where other people's don't. I was, I think I've said this on some other platforms, but when my mom was pregnant with me, the doctor came to her and said, like, hey, like, look, do you still want to have this child? Like, this child is going to be born with severe mental defects. Like, he's going to have a lot of learning differences. Like, you got a choice because his quality of life is not going to be great. So my mom had to make a decision. So she decided, like, we're going to still do it. I was born premature, a couple months premature from what I was told. But I mean, I was walking at 6 months. Like,
Jesus Christ.
You know what I mean? So like, that kind of, like, ever since I was little, I was walking at 6 months. Like, I have a 2-year-old, right? And so the idea of like me seeing him when he was 6 months and thinking like, oh my gosh, I was walking at that age, that's crazy. And so I think every part of my journey has been, I started school early, skipped a grade, graduated high school at 16. Here I am 16 years old on a college campus in a dorm, right? Like, so I think everything that I've done, I've always have thought about things in a different perspective. And so now I just been kind of just drawn to entrepreneurship and really trying to figure out ways to add value to leave this place a little better than we found it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of like a broad.
No, that's so
good.
good. It was so good. And it made me, you said something that was really important. And it was, you've always found opportunity, even in the midst of certain things that are happening in the world, which is why we really were focused on like having you as a guest, because you actually started a podcast basically like in the middle of where other people may be like, no, we're not doing anything. The world is in a crisis. You started something and began building something in the midst of that. But before we jump into that, we want to talk about some things that you've built prior to starting your podcast, because I know that you've started some businesses before. You've done things in the community. So talk to us a little bit about some of the businesses you've started and the businesses you've helped build, and why that was important to you.
Yeah, so you know, I played baseball all growing up, and you know, little league, all-star, travel ball, scout ball teams. Like in my mind, I always thought that I was going to the MLB. And you know, as I look back over my life, sports gave me so much of my foundation as far as the teamwork aspect. I was always, you know, high school, first team all league, all American, team captain, you know, all of that. So like I understood the importance of working with other people and kind of making other people better, like kind of that LeBron James mentality, you know, where you're only as good as everybody else on your team. And so when I got to Cal State San Bernardino, I wanted to join a fraternity, right? Kappa Alpha Psi, which I'm a member of. And one of the things that they, you know, the bar was really high. They were like, hey, well, what do you bring? What value do you bring? And I'm like, I'm Juan. What you mean? They're like, nah, bro, what do you do? Like, what community service do you do? So how are you changing and impacting the community? So I was like, well, me being a person who looks at things very differently, I was like, well, instead of me just going to somebody's community service, like we started an organization, where it was like, look, bro, we're going to start our own organization. We're going to do our own community service. So we started this organization called Enrichment Through Action, me and some other friends. And so, you know, through this organization and kind of the formation of this organization, you know, the goal wasn't to be like community service-based organization of the year or whatever. It was really just to kind of do some things, leave an impact. And what I saw that like I had influence over other people, and people were drawn to kind of energy, and we did some really great things. We did some great events, and that kind of solidified this idea that like I can use my genius, quote unquote, and influence for one or two ways. I could either use it for positive, or I can use it for, you know, for some negative things. So, you know, community service-based organization, Enrichment Through Action. You know, I started a production company because I love doing like events and stuff like that. So I did Forever Young Productions. We did a concert with Drake. We did a concert which was like Drake's first solo performance in the United States. It was right in downtown San Bernardino. I think that was like 2009, which was a really interesting experience. Did a concert with Day 26, which was, you know, they were pretty hot at the time. That was amongst my friends, like that is always our joke, because it was a terrible experience. That was like but I learned a lot though. Like we did an in-store signing with, you know, at the Ontario Mills Mall, at the Sean John store. Like, you know how many people that can say that they did an in-store signing and all of that.
Exactly.
But, you know, when Day 26 performed, a joke with our friends is they performed for 26 seconds because we dealt with like a promoter and things went super crazy and it was just a terrible experience. But, you know, so from that, then I was like, I want to get out of that game. Started doing like, I started a popcorn business. So my wife and I together, we started J&B Popcorn in Inglewood, in the city of Inglewood. You know, went through the whole like storefront process and building that and permits. I mean, we didn't know anything about opening the store. We did a Kickstarter campaign, successfully funded Kickstarter campaign. Anybody who does a Kickstarter, like it's hard to have a successfully funded Kickstarter campaign. So we raised money on there. You know, we started out of the house. We got a kiosk inside of the mall. You know, And then my wife got pregnant, and I don't know how that happened, but and I had it was either popcorn or wife and the kid, and so ended up allowing that business to not continue and kind of run its course. But I think we've learned some lessons, I mean, through that process. And so from there, because I was still in the food thing, one of the things that we're doing now is this urban foodie experience, which is, so we coordinate food festivals, generally in LA County, that's catered to melanated foodies.
Wait, Juan, that's you do that?
Yeah.
Yo, I did not know you did that. I follow that page and it's so dope. And I said I was gonna go to. You better be doing the thing. I didn't even know that. That's so cool. Okay, sorry, yeah. I got distracted.
It's all good, man. So yeah, man. So that's kind of one of the newer things, and then we're working on a few other things. I think my ADD doesn't allow me to. It doesn't allow me to put everything in one, but then also at the same time, one of the things that I love doing is I love the process of entrepreneurship. I don't enjoy the day to day, and so what I've been doing, like, I started a Nashville hot chicken business, Jay's Hot Chicken. Love the concept. Took a couple $100, and I just wanted to test it. Will it work? It worked. People loved it. People bought it. So then I have one of my fraternity brothers. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna teach you how to do this. When it opens back up, you take it. Pay me my little royalty fee. But there's a business for you. You looking for stuff to do. You don't have anything. There you go. I have like my mentee who I work with. One of my mentees, she's like a little sister to me. She used to work with me and for Urban Foodie Experience. Like I showed her the game, and I'm like, boom. Now I'm on to something else. You run it now. So I think it's just been trying to build stuff up to give opportunities to other people, and it's really not for me. It's really for other people to be able to learn some skills and have their own.
Jesus. So. My brain is, you already know my brain is going, so I'm going to give CJ the floor real quick. My God.
So you mentioned the process of entrepreneurship. Can you break that down a little bit more? Like, why do you enjoy that experience, and what is that experience to you?
Yeah, so to me, the process is, I love trying to, I think one of the things that have come really easy to me naturally is I think I'm a really good marketer. I think I have a really great way of being able to understand how to capture people's attention. And so anything that I've been able to do, whether it's been the execution part of it has been really great. I think the marketing, the promotion, the getting people excited about it is something that comes natural to me. I understand kind of how to do that. And so I think with entrepreneurship, it's just a challenge, man. I think it's the I'm creative, but in a different way, right? And so I think it allows them to be creative and think, how can I solve this problem in a way that nobody else has thought about it? So I think it's that aspect. It's the looking at a problem and like the plane that's flying over. It's one of the beauties of being outside. It's just being outside, and the other part is playing.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Well, the great thing is we can edit it out. I'm probably not.
I think we could keep it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm probably not, but it was an idea.
Yeah, but yeah. So the entrepreneurship part, man, I just think I love putting in the work, man. It's like a mental exercise for me. I think, and then I think of like, I'm always thinking of what's the impact. Everything I've done, it's not because of like the financial implications of it. Because a lot of it, like for instance, like when we went to the Nashville hot chicken thing, and like the idea of scaling a food business, that's really difficult, very challenging. So we didn't do that for money. It was like, it was fun. It was fun and it was creative. And like, I actually preferred to be in the kitchen because it was fun putting each sandwich together. It was almost like doing a work of art, right? So I think that's it. For me, my process is, I go from ideation to execution very quickly which is great sometimes, and is also pretty. It can also mean that you skip steps. But I've learned, you know, I guess the first thing for me is ideation, right? Bouncing ideas off my wife. Like, she is my sounding board, and it gets on her nerves, but she's my sounding board. I get an idea, I tell her, hey, what do you think of this? I'm the kite, and she's the rock that keeps me grounded. So, and then from there, man, we write it down. Google, I probably have 25 to 30 folders in my Google Drive of ideas, right? And then go from there, and then getting some feedback. You know, I test the idea, and then I put it out there to see if it's feasible, right? So, you know, we look at how can we do it. I don't look at challenges like, I'd never look at what can't be done because what I can't do because somebody else can't do it. You know, in my mind, I'm like, well, they ain't me, right? I'm always thinking like, you know, I'm Christian, so my faith is also plays a huge role in it, right? And I just believe that, you know, when God tells you to jump, it's time to jump. You know, even if you can't see the parachute, you know, and so yeah, man. I mean, I think that's the other process. Like, I do a lot of, for things that I'm going to jump into, I pray a lot, man, and I fast. That's a big thing for me, right? It's like praying and fasting to make sure that, because when I'm into something, I'm in, and I'm really invested. So I have to feel convicted and making sure that what I'm doing is something I should be doing at that time. So I don't know if that answers the question. I talk a lot and ramble, so
No,
it's the first time anybody's. I don't get interviewed, so I mean, you know, I'm thinking in my mind like, okay, how am I doing?
No, that was really good. That was perfect. Woo, man, you dropped so many, like, we call them nuggets and gems. You know how we are, millennials. We got a lingo for everything. But we have a question that's really important to me, because you talked about the importance of like having ideas and being able to execute them, and the importance of not being afraid because the other person didn't do it, and being able to say, well, they're not me. Right. And for me, I think that some of the greatest people that has ever walked the earth and left a legacy has thought like that. Like, I don't care if anybody else has failed, they not me. Right. And so I want to jump into the legacy part of this conversation, because when I do see you and I hear it, you know, I hear what you're saying here, and even what I've known of you prior to this interview, I literally see legacy. I know that you will leave a legacy, you know, on this earth, not just for your kids to see, but for other people around you to see. So what is the importance, like, for you when you think of the word legacy? What do you think about? And then can you explain like the importance of legacy, especially as a Black man?
Yeah. Now that I have a son, my idea of legacy is much different, right? Like, I think a lot of my thought process around legacy before was more so about me, you know, and me wanting to be known as this great person or whatever. But I mean, now my legacy is way different. You know, I'm raising a Black son. And so, you know, what does that mean? You know, for me, he's my legacy. Like, and so for me, it's just, I think I owe it. I tell it to my wife, like, we owe it to him to live a life, to live and get every drop of this life as we can, because I never want I never want me to be the reason why he's in a counseling session and say, yeah, well, my dad, I learned this from my dad, and this was my, like, no, man, like, that's, you know, I want him to not be afraid to be who he's called to be. So when I think of legacy, I think my marriage is I think my household first, right? So like, your marriage is your first ministry, right? I think about my marriage, you know, I think of, you know, really thinking about, you know, my parents, they were married for like 20 years before they divorced, you know, and most of the people in my family are either divorced or, you know, divorced, remarried, or whatever. And there's like, I have one uncle, they've been married for like 30 something years, right? And he's like the only one that's married to one person and still married. And I'm not saying that anything's wrong with it, but I'm just saying what, like, so I think of legacy. I think of like, what is what is my son going to think of me? What are my kids going to think of me? Right? What are my friends going to think of me? That's the first thing that I always like think about, is like my inner circle. And then I think about like just leaving the world a better place, man. As a Black man, like, you know, growing up in South LA, growing up in Watts, man, and looking around and seeing like, man, like we behind the 8 ball, man. We got a lot of work to do, and there's systems that are set up so that we don't get it. And, you know, and being passionate about education, like my long-term goals, you may ask me that, but my long-term goal, like I really love working with kids, and I want to write a book. I want to do some motivational speaking once we get the money up. I'm not trying to, I don't want to do motivational speaking and have to like carry me and sustain me. Like I just want to go and just do some speaking. But I specifically want to talk about entrepreneurship in our communities, because I think, you know, when I think of legacy, I think you got to create opportunities. You know, some doors are not going to be there, and just because doors are not opening, sometimes you got to build your own door and walk through it.
Sure.
And so, you know, as a Black man, man, I think I'm constantly every day fighting, you know, the stereotype that is out there. Every day I'm, you know, when I go out with my son, even so much to the point when I take my son, when my wife's not with me, I rarely wear my wedding ring. I don't never wear it. When I'm with him and it's just me and him, I put my wedding ring on because I want people to know I'm a Black man who got a Black son, but and
so
my wife is at home.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, it's weird, but like I think about those things.
Absolutely agreed.
And so, you know, I think that's my legacy. My legacy is, you know, to kill it in this life and then leave another individual behind who's going to take the baton and do more. And whatever that aspect is, you know, the fact that I'm raising a Black son means that he's going to go out there and do it. And then, you know, his kids will do it and be able to set them up for success in the future.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's funny because when you said the thing about the kids and teaching them about entrepreneurship and all that stuff, you don't know this, but like you really opened my eyes when I was in college, because you talked about enrichment through action. Like I was a part of enrichment through action, and it was such a powerful organization for me, Juan, and you don't know this. I never got a chance to tell you this, but when I got into college, I was not thinking about community. I wasn't thinking about building. I wasn't thinking about entrepreneurship. I wasn't thinking about any of that. First of all, I was like, how the hell did I even get into this place? But because you developed a space for people who look like me to make a difference in the community, it opened my eyes to realizing that I had a place, I had a voice, and I was powerful enough to do whatever it was that I was called to do. And so like, I just want to personally thank you for that. And then I also want to say, like, I'm super excited for you to really get out there and continue to do that work for people who look like us. Like it's necessary.
Yeah, thank you. I've one thing that I've learned, like, I didn't realize it. Like you can have impact on people and not even know that you have impact on people, right? And so that's what I'm telling people. Like, I realized through my entrepreneurial journey, whether it's like good or bad, whether the event went really well or not, like I always pulled in people. Like I gave, you know, like Curtis Moore, who does photography now, like he was doing,
yeah,
you know, I was hiring Curtis. Nate Brown, who was a good friend of mine, who, you know, works for Cal State Dominguez doing videos. I took him from Cal State San Bernardino. He was just doing audio video. Like there were so many people who like really got a taste of a lot of stuff just being around and hanging out with me, right? And people who are watching from the sidelines too, of like, well, if he can do it, then let me try. Okay, well, maybe he did it and I can do it better, right? And so people were inspired by that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm wanting to start back up. You know, for a long period of time, I was like, yeah, man, but I did this event and it didn't go well. So maybe I just shouldn't do anything else, because I mean, people are going to be like, yeah, Juan did. It's like, bro, so what? Like, now I'm on it. Like, who cares, man? Who cares? Like, we gonna keep it moving because the world needs our gene. Like, the world needs that airplane.
He's like, I'm back.
Yeah, you know, it's a lot of we can't dim our lights for other people. You know, that's one of the things that I'm learning through the process too. So thank you for sharing that.
No, absolutely.
I also have another question for you, Juan.
So
You had also mentioned just like the different connections that you have and also bringing people alongside you. Me and Kim, like that's one thing that we're very passionate about. We said that get that door open. We bringing everybody in with us. And
who willing to work.
Yeah, like everybody can come now. Like if you're not on your feet, we're going to go ahead and close that door. But for you, like how important is that? Because you also mentioned about you like starting a business and giving it over to another person to say, hey, like, you know, just kick me a couple of dollars back, but just entrusting somebody else like with your vision or just opening up that door for other people to come alongside you. Like how do you have that heart? Because many people don't.
I'm a Libra. And Libras Libras just, you know, we want to please, man. I think it's a great thing, but it's also one of my downfalls. You know, you want to please, and I am real, like people who are loyal to me, I'm loyal to them. And, you know, it's funny, like I have conversations with some of my friends, and we literally just had this conversation the other day where like I have some friends and they're like, well, I'm gonna be a partner. I'm like, why don't you just come along and just add some value first, and then let's see how we work. And then it's, well, I'm not working for you. I'm like, well, you gonna go work for Billy. You gonna go work for,
right.
I'll pay you the same thing. I'm like, I'll pay you the same. Like I remember I had offered one of my friends when I was doing the popcorn business. I was like, look, I want to work with people who I trust, right? How much you make at your job?
Mm-hmm.
I will pay you that, right? I'll pay that for you, pay you that, because you're not making that much. I'll pay that for you, pay you that same thing. Just come work for me, right? And we can build this thing, and then this thing grows, you know, then you come along, just take over stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'm building my own dreams. You know, I can't help you build yours while I'm, all right, man. So I just think that, like, I understand that, like, I want to give people the game because there are, like, I didn't really get that. Like, there weren't people weren't taking me under their wing and like, oh, come on, Juan, let me show you. I wish I would have had that. Like, I didn't have that mentor type of relationship with people. So, you know, people who I see, man, I'm always looking for, I root for the underdog. Mm-hmm. That's me. Like, I root for the person who may not feel that they could ever be, you know, a franchisee. Like, brother, come on, man. Let me show you the game. You know, you willing to work? I'm sure you, but it's hard finding and people who look like me. Like, I'm also like, you know, you got some melanin, man. I'm on your team if you're willing to work and if you're coachable. Yeah. So yeah, man. I think that's just, I don't get. It's so funny because I'm outgoing and I'm usually in the front, but I hate being in the front. That's the crazy thing. Like, most of the time when I've done things in the past, I put other people, oh, this is so-and-so did that. Oh, so-and-so. Like, I can be the president of the organization, but I don't want to be the one getting the award, huh? Y'all got it.
Yeah, this is true.
Because I don't need it. Like, I'm good. Like, I got confirmation when I did it and I looked at it and like, oh, this is dope. Cool. I don't need anybody else to tell me I'm dope. So I think that's where it is. I think, like, my fear of, I don't like being in the front. And then the other thing is, like, I really want to build people up because, you know, I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a wellness.
Hold on. Juan, there you go. You had froze for a little bit, but we're good now.
Okay, my bad.
No, you're good. So really quick, but going back to CJ's question, I think that you also, like, people like you have the ability to have vision and also not be afraid of, like, people. I think that as a creative and especially like an entrepreneur, we get so afraid of, like, people stealing our ideas. We get afraid of, like, oh, I don't know if I can share this with you because, and I think that your ability to be able to say, like, no, I want to bring people in. And then not only that, but when you get good at it, I will hand it over to you. Right. I think it says a lot about your ability to be an entrepreneur. Because I think true entrepreneurship is that ability to be like, it doesn't matter how many ideas that I give away, I'm going to have that many more ideas. So people get so caught up in the fact that this is my one great idea and this is my baby and I don't ever want to let it go because this is the greatest thing I've ever created. But for me, I feel like, well, that's placing limits on your creativity. And I don't think that you're a true entrepreneur, because a true entrepreneur will be able to say, yeah, I built this and then I handed it off and then I built something else, because my brain operates like that. My mind is limitless. I can create something anytime. I can come up with a better idea the next time. And so I think it really speaks to your ability to like create and your true entrepreneurship like spirit. So yeah, that was really good. Woo!
Thanks.
So we got a lot out of you.
Yeah.
A lot. But I wanted to talk about the main thing that we brought you here for, and that is the ability to still build in the midst of what looks like or what is a crisis. Because as we sit here, we are in a pandemic, and many people are trying to just figure out like their day to day, which is completely understandable. Like there are some days where we're all like, what is tomorrow going to look like?
Right.
But can you speak on the importance of understanding like, yeah, it's okay to be a little worried, but we should still build for our future, even in the midst of all of this?
Yeah. My mom passed. Me and my mom, I talk to my mom every day. Okay. My mom ran a preschool. She was a director of the preschool. I was an assistant director of her preschool. So I was there with her every day. I'm helping her as I'm learning about entrepreneurship. I'm giving her game, right? I think it was a few times I brought, we did a community service project there where we repainted we did a whole bunch of stuff, right? So my mom went to sleep on Friday in October of 2010 and never woke up. So she passed like this. No, I'm like, what's going on, right? And so, losing like your best friend like this, one of the things that you learn, life is not promised. Mm-hmm. And, my mom, when she passed, she was fasting, right? So she was writing down her prayers and stuff like that. And so I'm reading her book, and she was, reading the prayers that she was written. I'm like, man, my mom was in church every Sunday, all that stuff. And I'm like, life is not promised, right? As I was going through grieving, had to, go to the business on that Monday because she ran a preschool, 45 kids there, 45 parents. I have to come and tell her, she's not there anymore and all of that, and her staff and all of that stuff and running that. Like, bills didn't stop coming. Bills stop coming. Like, the landlord wasn't like, oh, she's not here. Oh, you know what? Let me give you a couple months, on the house. Nah, like, things had to still get done. And so I had two options. I could either fold, or I can, lean on all the, as a Christian, I could lean on all the things that I used to say, right? About, God, he's a comforter and he knows all, and all of that. It's like, oh, bro, now this is your opportunity. And I think my faith was pretty strong, and I think that was like one of the testing moments. When I got the call that my mom passed, I was with some friends. I was actually pulling up to a frat party at the time. So we get in the car, and I'm like praying on the way home, and I'm like, oh God, thank you. Like, not thank you that you're gone, but just thank you for sustaining us. Like, thank you. We know we're gonna be all right. Like, at that moment, I didn't want my faith to appear weak. So I was like, I'm gonna go the other way. Like, cool, we're gonna thank you, God, you good, man, in the midst of it. So my perspective in this like pandemic is a little different. Like, because I hold on to something that's bigger than me, and I understand that this too shall pass, and there's never been a storm that didn't have an ending, right? And so because there's never been a storm that didn't end, there's never been a time when the sun didn't rise, and that bills are going to keep coming. Life is going to keep coming at you, right? And I think for me, the best way to honor my mom was to continue her legacy. So when you talk about legacy, like, legacy was get your butt up and let's get going, right? So when I look at like the pandemic, two things can be true. This can be a very terrible situation, and difficult and tough and challenging financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, health, all of that. But then the other side is like, but the reality is the sun is still going to rise tomorrow. And I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't pause and reflect on what lessons can I learn from this? So that way, if any situation, it may not be another pandemic, but it may be a layoff that comes. It may be you get a health diagnosis that comes. Maybe it's a death of somebody in the family when it comes. That's going to give you a big blow. How are you putting yourself up so that way your life can still move on, you know? And I think that's, for me, that's one thing I'm learning through this pandemic. Like, this is a reminder that you think you're comfortable, you think you're good, you think all that stuff get pulled right up underneath you. No matter how long you've been at your job. Right. You get 20 years, you could be higher up. Like, I know my aunt's job, they furloughed like all the salaried people. She hourly, so she good. But all the people who are making tons of money, like, they're not working right now. They're getting furloughed with no pay. So, you know, it's a reminder that, for me, my perspective, it's a reminder that God is saying, like, you thought your job was your provider of your income. You was getting it all wrong. Like, I provide everything for you. So you was putting your faith, you thought your stability was in your job. Like, I'm your stability. I'm the rock upon which you should be, you know, placing all of your cares and burdens and all of your expectations on me. And you was waiting on that 9 to 5 and that paycheck every 2 weeks. So, I mean, that's what I take from this situation, and that's why it's allowed me time to get stuff done. So,
well, right. You definitely answered that question. Right. Well, I feel like this is definitely just one of like many interviews you're about to start having, sir. So get ready. This was amazing. Yes. Can you please let our audience know?
Oh, wait, hold on. Before you do that, I got one more thing. Okay. I feel like we would be doing you a disservice if we did not talk about Urban Foodie Experience. Can you just quickly let the people know about that?
Yeah, so Urban Foodie Experience.
Oh, definitely.
We started in very quick. Why we did Urban Foodie Experience. I started Jay's Hot Chicken, right? I was a Nashville hot chicken vendor, and I had J&B popcorn, right? So I've been in kind of the food space. We've done a few food events. Most of the time you go there, you don't see a lot of vendors that look like me. It's a lot of these larger events. They're super expensive, and depending on what you do, sometimes you're the icon. If it's 1 or 2 black vendors, they're pretty much all Asian themed. So as the black vendor there, you're like, So I'm like, man, it's one of those things, right? I start waiting to get into people's events, and sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. I'm like, why am I trying to get into their events? I just do my own event. Right. Like, I was driving, I saw an empty parking lot at an event space. I'm like, y'all don't ever use this parking lot. Can I rent it? They're like, sure. Why not? $10 per parking stall. Cool. Then we charge a vendor $100 to be a vendor there. You're selling food, $200, right? And I had to start recruiting vendors and all minority-owned businesses. And we did our first event, extremely well received. Did Facebook, Instagram ads. All I wanted was to make sure that I got people's information. So we did Eventbrite, right? So now I have thousands of emails on the list. And so now we're going to transition into like the night market space. We actually had a night market planned for June, but we postponed it.
That's going to be fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of what the idea is. We have a Rolodex of like 500 plus vendors. And then what we're going to be doing in the fall with Kyla taking over is I'm showing her and training her. We're gonna start doing meal lunches for corporations at their offices. So, you know, food trucks and stuff like that. So we'll have a platform for people to be able to, food truck vendors will be able to, we'll start putting places and stuff like that. They'll pay a small vendor fee. And then, you know, we'll send them to AT&T, we'll send them to Time Warner, we'll send them to this because, you know, we're the plug now. We have you want a minority owned business that sells really good food. We'll do all of the work for you and we'll send them to your spot. So, yeah. That's
That
Urban
is
Foodie
so
Experience.
dope. Like, I cannot wait to go to the night space. Like, it's like almost like a market night, but for Black people, right?
Yeah.
My God,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
gonna be fire. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's gonna be good, man. We love food.
I mean, I like to eat. So,
I love to eat. My God,
we're gonna definitely be down there supporting you as well as the
for
other
sure.
vendors.
We'll give you the VIP experience once we can get back out.
I want the VIP experience.
I'll take a VIP experience. Juan, this was such an amazing like interview. I'm so glad that you said yes to coming on. So like I was saying before, where can our audience find you? So from the Urban Foodie Instagram page to your podcast, like where can we all follow and make sure that we are on this journey with you together?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is at Juan Young Jr. Urban Foodie Experience Instagram is at Urban Foodie Experience. And then my podcast is the Fail to Grow podcast. So the Instagram is at the Fail to Grow pod. I mean, I have a Twitter. I haven't used a Twitter in like 5 years, 6 years. I probably will start doing that. It's just I was also managing the brands pages. So like Instagram accounts, and so I'm managing other brands' Instagrams as well. So I really didn't have time for all of that. Like, but I'm gonna get back into the Twitter, the Twitter space.
We've been saying that since October. So and we haven't. So really quick though, before we let you go, because you've blessed us by being on our podcast. Can you talk about a little bit about what your podcast is about and why people should follow your podcast, Fail to Grow? Because I, first of all, love the name. So tell us like what that means and what you have, like the guests you have on your show and why it's important.
Cool. Quickly, the Fail to Grow podcast came up with the idea because I think that failure is a natural and a necessary part of the growth process. And as long as you learn from those failures, you will grow. But if you fail to learn from them, you'll fail to grow. So it was kind of like a play on words because, if you don't get the lesson, you just keep failing and you won't become better. And so I was really interested in talking to people who are really interesting individuals from a lot of different industries. Some people are entrepreneurs, some people are working in corporate, some people are in law, just a lot of different perspectives, primarily all people of color. And I just want to hear like, what was all the interviews are really just focused on what's perspective and, what was the moment that shifted their perspective to seeing a glass half full and a glass half empty. And I think, having a glass half full perspective is one of the things that differentiates people who are successful, people who are not.
I love it.
Yeah.
Woo! This was great. Juan, again, thank you so much. You guys, listen, if you were not taking notes, we need you to go back, listen to this, pull your notebook out, and get to work. Because if you don't feel inspired to get up and do something after this, then you just, I don't have any words for you. I was gonna say something bad, but I don't want to be in trouble. So follow me on Instagram at kim.s.scott. You can follow CJ at
She is C Johnson, SHEISCJOHNSON.
You guys, she's gonna do that to the end of time. And then don't forget to follow us on Instagram at toobroketobedope. And then
our website, tobedope.net. Also, we got some things we're working on.
Yes, we do.
So
we're so
stay tuned for that.
Yes.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Pod, on YouTube,
Spotify,
send
all the
us
good
love, email us at toobroke@gmail.com. And until next time,
stay dope.